Number 8. SS Bachimo. The SS Bachimo was a 230-foot, 1,322-ton cargo steamer built in the Swedish shipyards and owned by the Hudson Bay Company. It was first launched in 1914 with the job of transporting goods along the trade route between Sweden and Germany, but after the end of World War I, as part of Germany's war reparations, it was passed over to the UK in 1921. Its new mission was collecting fur pelts and trading them for tobacco, sugar, tea, and weapons along the Canadian coast during the summer seasons. For the next decade, the SS Bachimo circumnavigated the globe, carrying supplies between Canada and Scotland. Then on October 1, 1931, while on its way to Vancouver, the ship got trapped in Alaska in an early season ice pack. The ship was coming to an end of a trade run and the crew needed to wait a couple of days for the ice to break, so they hiked over the ice to the Alaskan town. As luck would have it, a week later, SS Bachimo got trapped in the ice again, but this time more seriously. The Hudson Bay Company airlifted about 20 of its employees out of Dodge, while despite the harsh weather, 14 skilled sailors and the ship's captain decided to stay and look over the ship for the rest of the winter. However, according to Arctic historian Ken Harper, on November 24th, the temperature rose from -60 to 0, and for 3 days in a row, a blizzard raged, preventing the crew from leaving the shelter they had. When the storm finally stopped and they were able to get out, Bachimo was no longer trapped in the ice. In fact, it wasn't even on the shore. The ship was gone. The crew presumed that their ship sank, but a few days later, an Inuit seal hunter told them that he saw it floating some 45 miles away. The crew tracked the ship down, but it was in such bad repair that the captain unloaded any valuable cargo and decided that Bachimo was no longer seaworthy. The abandoned ship remained in the Arctic waters, sailing alone without a crew for decades. Its life as a ghost ship began, and it was sighted only 12 times in the following 40 years. The SS Bachimo was last seen floating in the Arctic in 1969. For all we know, she still drifts the vast waters across the globe. Eventually, the authorities in Alaska got involved and launched a project to track down the mysterious vessel once and for all. To date, the Bachimo is still missing. Number 7. HMS Resolute. The history of the HMS Resolute actually begins with another ship, the HMS Terror. The name may be familiar to many of you. The Terror joined the HMS Erebus in a mission to find the Northwest Passage in 1845. This body of water was thought to join the Atlantic to the Pacific. Leading the mission was British Sir John Franklin, who reportedly took 3 years' worth of provisions for the crew. He also packed a few warm sweaters. Why? Well, the Northwest Passage ran through the Arctic, so, it's a little chilly. It sounds like a very dangerous journey for the Royal Navy, and it was. The ice was merciless, and tragically both crews died. No polar expedition has matched this grim milestone. Before it was known what happened to HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, another mission was launched to find them. That mission featured no less than 5 vessels commanded by Sir Edward Belcher. One of these ships was the HMS Resolute. The follow-up mission also didn't go well for the British Navy. However, this time Belcher and the crew made it back home. Not before 4 out of the 5 ships fell victim to the ice, though, including the Resolute. Belcher's name was tarnished on his return to Great Britain. Meanwhile, the Resolute sat in the ice as a ghost ship, until it was discovered by the Americans. A whaling vessel sighted the Resolute and it took to the States. They set about restoring the craft to its former glory. What did they plan to do with it? Well, they kindly wanted to return the ship to England, where it was graciously received by Queen Victoria. By 1879, the HMS Resolute had finally had its day. But a piece of it stayed in America. Have you ever wondered where that handsome desk in the Oval Office came from? This is a piece of the Resolute, sent in thanks to Rutherford B. Hayes. A piece of British naval history rescued by the Americans is now a famous part of the furniture over at the White House. Number 6. Octavius. This next ghost ship is especially eerie due to what was found on board when discovered in Greenland in the late 18th century. The Octavius had been at sea since 1761 and originally voyaged to the Far East from England as a cargo vessel. Their outbound journey sounds like it went pretty well, with the ship reaching its destination after approximately a year on the water. Trouble was, they then had to come all the way back, and for whatever reason, the captain figured it would be a good idea to travel through the icy North Passage. The ship never made it home, and for years no one knew what happened to it. Fast forward to 1775, and a whaling craft named the Herald spotted the Octavius. Exploring the ship, the whalers were shocked to find the crew. 25 crewmen and their captain froze to death on board. Frozen at his desk was the captain, with rumors stating he died midway through his work, holding a pen in his hand. Most tragic was the sight of his wife and son, who died in the same quarters. Everyone had perished in the icy conditions. Spooked by what they discovered, the crew of the Herald grabbed the ship's logbook and hightailed it out of there. The logbook was frozen solid and parts of it broke away before it could be read. What pages were left was more than enough for them to piece together the crew's probable fate. The last position logged in the book placed Octavius roughly 250 miles off Alaska's northernmost point, and that was from November 11, 1762, 13 years before they found it. It's speculated that Octavius had become trapped in the ice, then at some point the ice cracked and the ship broke free, continuing on its journey successfully through the passage with her frozen crew. Fearing Octavius to be cursed, the Herald left her to drift. The ship was never seen again. Number 5. Genshin. In 2006, Australia's Coast Guard discovered a 262-foot tanker covered with strange paint marks drifting southwest of Queensland in the Gulf of Carpentaria. When authorities found it, no one was on board and it had a broken tow rope. Nobody knows where it came from or who it belonged to. Any marks that would help identify the vessel had been removed. There were no signs of violence or illegal activity such as poaching or smuggling. It just mysteriously showed up one day. Australian Customs Service dispatched a patrol boat immediately and pictures were taken of the vessel. Storm Bay, an Australian customs ship, arrived during the night and waited until sunrise before launching a tender to board the vessel, which was drifting in uncharted waters. A spokesman for Australian Customs addressed the news media, stating that although they weren't able to obtain documentary evidence of its registration or origin point, materials recovered on board appear to suggest the vessel was called the Genshin. A large quantity of rice was found on board, leading authorities to believe the vessel was used as a resupply ship for fishing boats in the waters outside the Australian Exclusive Economic Zone. It's believed the tow line snapped and the ship just floated along to the position it was found in. The vessel had been adrift for an exceptionally long time before anyone found it. The engines weren't working and they were incapable of being restarted. It was also reported that the boat was drifting slowly southwards. It had been extensively stripped, suggesting that it may have been on its way to a scrapyard when it broke free from the tow rope. Storm Bay monitored Genshin for a few days before a decision was made to tow it to the nearest harbor. The ship went to Wei Pa on Cape York by a salvage tug where oily water which posed an environmental hazard was safely removed. Since no owner of the ship could ever be located, it was towed to deep water and scuttled. The tanker took its secrets to a watery grave. What do you think happened to this mysterious tanker? Let us know in the comments below, and if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. Number 4. Lyubov Orlova. Keep watching if you dare, for we're about to talk about the Lyubov Orlova. The mighty vessel got into trouble on the high seas whilst being towed to the Dominican Republic in 2013. The owner was reportedly unable to meet their financial obligations, and so the ship was on its way to be scrapped for parts at a cost of over $1 million. The sea had other plans for the ship though, as water levels rose and the tow rope snapped. The Lyubov Orlova was left drifting on its lonesome. That doesn't sound very horrific at all, but wait for it. The story gained some traction when it was suggested there might be an army of rats on board. How the rats got there, we don't know. They swam? Were they already on board? Who knows? And we don't want to know. The whole idea makes our skin crawl. We're guessing anyone who chances upon the Lyubov Orlova might want to tuck their socks into their pants before they start exploring. And watch your back. Those things are supposed to be ravenous. Number 3. High Aim 6. In 2003, the Australian Navy discovered a cargo ship called the High Aim 6 in the waters off the Exclusive Economic Zone, Australia. The 80-foot vessel came from South Taiwan with an Indonesian crew. When authorities went on board, the engine was still chugging and food and supplies were still in place, but the crew was gone. Everyone on board had seemingly vanished. Bearing in mind the vast distances involved, it's incredible that so many people could just disappear. But what happened? After some investigating, a few of the crew members were named and even located. They had made it back to Indonesia, but the captain and engineer of the ship were never found. They didn't survive the voyage. In fact, according to one of the crew members, they were killed. What we're looking at here, folks, is a full-on mutiny. Only trouble is, it hasn't been established what the mutiny was about. Clearly, something had gone very wrong, but it's still a mystery what happened to this day. The High Aim 6 was deemed abandoned and was handed over to the Australian Fisheries Management Authorities for disposal. No one wanted the ship, so the AFMA came to the conclusion that it should be sunk for use as a fish habitat. However, it was ultimately decided that the vessel be scrapped and disposed of. That was it for the High End 6. We are hoping the previous 5 high ends had a happier time of it. Number 2. Manfred Fritz Bajarat. The next entry is less of a ghost ship and more of just a ghost. What happens to somebody's body if they pass away at sea? A couple of fishermen discovered the answer in 2016 when they noticed a ghost ship with a broken mast, which was half sunk near the island of Mindanao in the Philippine Sea. Aboard was one Manfred Fritz Bajarat, a solitary sailor who was slumped over a table in the nude. His body was very well preserved, like some kind of sea mummy. What happened to Mr. Bajarat? An investigation concluded that the 59-year-old passed away from a heart attack. He was there for approximately 7 days before being found. So how did he end up a mummy of sorts? Well, the conditions out there acted to dry him out, with the salt in the air preserving his corpse despite being in the open. Manfred Fritz Bajarat was from Germany and spent much of his life sailing. He did this alone, but used to be accompanied by his wife, who sadly died of cancer in 2010. The pair had reportedly been divorced since 2008. Nevertheless, the loss hit him hard. A note written by Manfred revealed his deep heartbreak. It seems the last years of his life were very sad, and now we can only wonder if his spirit haunts the ocean. Number 1. The Taymouth Electron. The case of Donald Crowhurst is one of the great ocean-going mysteries. In the late 1960s, he set off to take part in a race around the world in his boat, the Taymouth Electron. However, he went off-grid for a while, and when the boat was eventually found, there was no sign of Crowhurst. Examining the evidence he left behind, it appears he was out of his depth and attempted to fake details of his progress during the race. As for the man himself, did he fall overboard? Did he take his own life rather than face people back home? People speculate about the story to this day. A few movies have been made about Crowhurst and the Taymouth Electron, one starring Colin Firth. The Electron became a striking example of a ghost ship. But what happened after? Well, it had what looks to be a happier time operating as a pleasure boat in Jamaica. After this, it went elsewhere in the Caribbean as a diving vessel. Unfortunately, it suffered a sad end when it was accidentally dropped from a crane onto the beach at Cayman Brac. The poor boat needed some repairs and wound up totally out of commission. To make matters worse, over time it was also hit by a couple of hurricanes. As reported in the last few years, the wreck has been vandalized and traces of its former identity removed. Nature has claimed Crowhurst's former home, making it a fascinating and eerie piece of history. Thanks for watching. Are there any ghost ships you think should have been included on the list? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time for another amazing video right here on American Eye.